Progress. Our setting bed is in. We're finally ready to do what we started out to do all along, and that is lay pavers. I took a string line and we measured off of the house here 5.5 inches because that's the size of our border. It's a little tough to measure off the house with veneer because you don't have a straight edge, but we took the widest pieces and ran our string line up alongside the house. And that's what we're gonna lay our pavers off of to make sure that we're laying square with the house. I'm now gonna take this giant square, this is a 3-4-5, and I'm gonna set it up along here and run a string line this way yet. And that gives me my perfect right angle. If you're not laying right against the side of the house like we are here, you still would measure off of it. Let's say we didn't do the patio over here, we just did this walkway. Even though my walkway's out all the way out here, I would still measure off of the house, say 130 inches on this end, 130 inches on that end, or whatever it is, and run a string line straight down through the middle here, and we would still be laying square with the house. When you come to lay pavers, square off of the house, it's nearly always possible. Sometimes we do like patios that are way far away from the house, like out in the yard. Then it doesn't matter, but you still need to lay square, and I would just throw down this 3-4-5, a big square, and run string line this way and there's a string line that way, and it's not square with anything but itself. All right, big moment, first paver. That's what it should look like before you start. String line set up, perfect right angle. Before you start to lay pavers, or as we're laying pavers, the marks that the screed pipes left, we fill those in and trowel them out with our little hand trowel. That way it doesn't leave a hole where the stones can migrate in and eventually cause two pavers to settle if they're right on that pipe mark. All right, first paver. Right on the lines. Don't want to be kicking these around once you set them, so I want to carefully set it in. But you want it straight too, you know what I mean? There we go. Okay, next paver. Remember this when you're laying pavers. Click and stick. They have these little bumpers on them that keep a space in between your pavers, like this. See that? There's little bumpers down in there. That's so you can get a joining material in. But what happens is you set your paver down here and then you push it down against, you're gonna get little stones caught in between the bumpers and you're not gonna be able to push it the whole way against. And then your lines are gonna go all wiggly. So you wanna come from the top like this, slide it in against the whole way, and then drop, and you're not gonna pinch any stones in. So, click and stick.
Click and stick.
Click and stick, stick and click.
I think you're saying it wrong, but I can't remember how we say it.
Okay, that what I just said, not that. Something else. Just don't kick your paver around. There we go. It's straight, the bumpers line up. I don't have to kick it around afterwards. Phase 1 is done. It took us an hour to lay this in. Laying the paver is not the part that takes long, it's getting the base in. But we're ready to do this walkway now. We screeded it out using the same method we did on the patio. Now, to lay down here, I don't have my string lines that were along the house anymore. So I know that this is square with the house. These lines are going square with the house. Just look at that. When you look down there, look at this line right here, this line. The same distance off the house. You'll notice it if they go crooked, trust me. But I know these are square with the house, so that means I can run a string line off of them. So I picked the 4-foot section here, and I ran my string line straight down here. Nice and straight with this one, so I don't need to measure off of this house. Normally I would double check it with the house, but when it has a veneer face on, can't. There's no place you can get a measurement off of it that would be the same. So I know this is good. All right, let's lay in the walkway. We couldn't quite finish screeding because we ran out of setting bed. I have to bring some more tomorrow.
And we're gonna run out of pavers, pretty sure.
DJ's lying. We're gonna have pavers to spare. Okay, so Jason and I just finished laying in this walkway this morning. Yesterday we were talking about how to build patios that last long. We were talking about the longevity of it, how to pack base properly. Today we're going to talk more about how to build patios that look good. It's going to involve adding a border. It's going to involve making sure that you have nice smooth curves on it. And while we're talking about that, I'm going to show you a good way. Some people will lay out a garden hose or something. We like to use a 1/2-inch flex pipe that's like water line, and it's flexy and it's easy to make curves with. So we get 2 guys on it and we'll lay it down. Just kind of lay it down until we get what we want. We can play around. As you can see, we have a bunch of lines going here, so we end up erasing and remarking until we get something we like. And then I just use an erasable soapstone. You can use sidewalk chalk, anything that's not going to stain the pavers that'll make a mark. And we go along and trace this the way we want it. So play with it until you get something that doesn't have any flat spots. It's a nice gentle curve the whole way through, no sharp changes in it. And don't feel bad to play around with it a while. It can take some practice till we get something that you like. All right, we're gonna start up our saws and cut this thing in. Okay, so some tips when you come to cut in your patio. This is pretty important to cut your paver in place. A lot of homeowner jobs you see, and even some contractors, unfortunately, what they'll do, they have a chop saw, and so they think all I need to do is go get a diamond blade for my chop saw. And then they mark it out. Maybe they mark it out like this, but what they end up doing is picking up each paver, taking it to their chop saw, cutting it, and putting it back down. And what that does then is the joints from paver to the cut from paver to paver never line up exactly right. So this one's a little bit off this way, this one's a little bit off this way, and you lose that smooth flow, that smooth curve. So get yourself one of these portable gas saws and cut your paver in place. You can rent these. Just about any power tool rental place will have them. If you have a Steel dealer or a Husqvarna dealer, they'll have them and you can rent them. Once you have it all marked out, I go along and instead of cutting the whole way through the paver, I'll just score like a 1/4 inch. I keep moving pretty good. Just right like this, and all my cuts are gonna end up looking very smooth. And then once I have it scored, a 1/4 inch cut, then I'll go along and I'll cut the rest of the way through the paver. It keeps you from having those staggered, rough, not smooth edges. And then, once you have it cut, you're ready to put in the border. All right, let's cut this thing. Okay, so you can see how I cut these. They're perfectly in line now. Each piece is gonna line up perfectly with the last one. Now that I have it scored, it's only cut like a 1/4 inch deep. I'm gonna try to angle my blade a little bit this way instead of that way, so that this is the farthest out edge. And I don't wanna hit this inside edge again. That's my perfect score. That's the edge I don't wanna hit. I can cut into the paver over here, but I'm gonna keep my saw blade angled a little bit like this, and I'm not gonna hit this inside line ever again, because that's the edge that's gonna show. So there we go. So look at that. Remember when I cut off that edge of the blacktop to get myself a nice edge? Now, these pieces were just little paver scraps right there and right there. I cut those off, and then I marked out for my border, and zoom, comes in nice and flush, looks good, perfect. That's how you bring a walkway up to a driveway. Okay guys, the hard work is done. Cutting a patio and a walkway takes a lot of time and it's hard work. It hurts your back. But now you get the rewarding part. We could at this point go along and put in pave edge, and there wouldn't be anything wrong with that. Your patio wouldn't fail. it would work. However, if you want to make it look good, pick a border that contrasts nicely with the paver that you're using for your walkway or patio. One that we use a lot with chestnut brown is a bit of it's a red color. Chocolate looks nice. Just don't use the same color that you used for your walkway or patio. And then I go along on these edges after I cut and touch them up a bit with my hand trowel so they're not messed up. And do yourself a favor and get a paver like, I'm not familiar with all the different paver brands. We work with EP Henry and Teco Block. EP Henry has a paver called Forma. Teco Block has a paver called Villaggio, which is this one. What's super neat about these pavers is these border pieces, you don't need to cut them all. Some people just use a regular 6x9 square paver and they'll set them in this way, the whole way around. They're all the same size, except what happens when you go around a turn, you either get really wide joints or you end up cutting them. These are really easy to lay in, running bond style. Just stack them along the side, doesn't take long, and it looks really nice. Go ahead, spend a little bit of extra money, put in that border. It's not gonna make your patio last longer, but it is gonna make it look better. So we have one more important thing that you can mess up. We've all seen it. You see these walkways in and you can't even see the walkway because all you can see, all your eyes can focus on is this big black piece sticking up like that. Know what I'm talking about? It looks horrible. So people get their pave edge too high because they think the pave edge is to hold the edge of the pavers in place. And that's not the purpose of it at all. Remember the inch setting bed we screeded out? That's what you want to retain. Because as time goes by, this little loose stone is gonna work its way away from there, and pretty soon the edges of your patio are gonna look like that. You've seen it, I know. And the reason for that is your pave edge is not retaining the setting bed at all. It's just sitting on top of the setting bed. So we take our flat shovel or a trowel or whatever. Let me fix up what I messed up here. I'm so good at this.
Classic Ben. At it again, messing up my hard work.
Yeah, I do the best I can. Here's what I do. I take my flat shovel and I scrape away that setting bed all the way down to the base that I packed. All the way down against the base. Scrape all that setting bed away. Now, I get this piece of pave edge, a little tip. These things come connected. I just cut them off. Cut these little, this strip off right here. And that makes my piece all flexible so that I can do my curves. And I set this down against the base, nice and flat like that. And I come over here and I pound in my paver spikes. I skip a few holes, I skip every 2 holes. And what that does, pull this paver out so that you can see. That locks this setting bed in place. This can no longer migrate out because I'm holding it in place with this pave edge. That will ensure that your pavers are gonna stay nice and vertical. And this thing's gonna be low enough that when I do dirt work over it, up to the edge of the pavers, I'm not gonna see it. So 2 bonuses. My edges stay nice and level instead of tapering off because my setting bed is being held in place by the pave edge, and I don't see that nasty looking black plastic. So there you go. Do it right, and it's gonna do its job and not be visible. Okay, so you have this in, it's nice and level, it's flat on the base. Sometimes when you scrape away those 9s, it can undermine a bit until you get the pave edge in. So what I like to do when I'm done is go on, take a scoop of this number 9s, and I put them in like this, just to make sure that's full. And if you have any pavers that are sloping downhill a bit, you can lift them up then and work them in there. So, because like when you scrape that away, it can undermine sometimes. That'll fix it up, hold it in there, and you know what you just poured in there isn't ever gonna come out because it's held in place with that pave edge. Pave edging done right.